Welcome back. This week we're talking about episode 9 of Siberia. I was poking around YouTube and found another video to recommend. I won't give anything away, but I will tell you that it was uploaded by Johnny Wachter in order to get his fans pumped up for Siberia. I'll wait for you to check it out, and you can come back when you're done. So, without further interruption, let's start the review. Quick episode recap. Johnny and Daniel took a look around.
Turn your light on. Your light. Your light. Yes.
Miljan came back to camp.
They took her.
Joyce found some keys in her pocket.
I have a weird feeling about this.
Why?
Johnny saw dead people.
What?
Nico stopped whining and did something useful.
We need to get like a fire burning or something.
Daniel and Sam went poking through the lab.
I don't want to be part of anybody's experiment.
Sabina found the gun.
Open the door.
Sam got the power running again. Daniel found some old movies on a computer.
Guys, the computer's working.
What?
Yeah. No.
And the camp got some unexpected visitors. This week we got another episode where not much seemed to be happening. We picked up where we left off in the Research Institute with Johnny and Daniel exploring the place, a task that became much easier once Joyce found a set of keys in her pocket. After stumbling around in the dark, they finally found an old busted up radio and some even more busted up corpses. The discovery of the bodies certainly had potential to be interesting, but as sometimes happens, it was glossed over in favor of something flashy somewhere else. I'm disappointed that the Fellowship never really bothered to try to identify the bodies or even move them out of the office where they died. We did get a scene where Joyce takes the boots off the bodies and feels guilty about it, but as a viewer it didn't matter that she took the stuff because the show didn't make any effort to make the bodies seem like anything more than just another set piece. A singular monologue and one shot of family pictures is not enough to arouse my sympathies for characters that we've never met before. You know, as much as I harp on Miljan for being violent and crazy, it was good to see him back this week. Miljan stumbled back into camp alone and explained to Sabina that he took Irene because the voice in his head told him that she would get help if he took her out into the woods.
He tells me what to do, and he said if I take Irene to the woods, she's gonna be okay. So that's what I did. I had to do it.
This business of hearing voices helps support my theory that Miljan is being spoken to by Ogdi, but his lack of menace and fear of the unknown entities in the woods really pokes a hole in the idea that he's being completely enthralled by Russian Thor. I thought it was interesting that Miljan felt the need to tell the world that he wasn't crazy. I'm sure he realized how crazy he'd been acting as of late and wanted to make sure that people don't think he's lost his mind. It's too bad for him that crazy people often go around telling people that they're not crazy. However, by this point, I get the feeling that Miljan is above all scared out of his wits. It's a safe assumption to be sure, since he spent the majority of this episode cowering behind things. Nico was largely up to his old tricks again, namely being short-tempered, skeptical, and altogether annoying. But I have to admit that he actually had a good idea this week. The ring of torches around the camp was a pretty sharp idea. It's just a shame that Nico spent every other minute on screen complaining about his situation or yelling at the others. I find it funny that Johnny and Nico have sort of switched places from where they started in the pilot. Where before Johnny was the confrontational one and Nico was the team player, now Johnny is working alongside Daniel and Sam, and Nico spends his time berating Miljan and second-guessing Sabina.
I'm trying to help you here.
Help me, you're making the job harder for me.
You know what? How about you just do it yourself and stop telling me what to do? You're not boss around here, okay?
You serious?
Now do it yourself.
I hate to say that I like something about Nico, but I do like how he represents the leader who can't handle command. Like the first mate who is unexpectedly promoted to captain and then breaks under the pressure. Nico started off great. If you go back to my earlier reviews, you'll see that he was one of the people I was really rooting for, but now I can't really get behind the character. I really liked Sam this week. After nearly losing his foot on the waist, Sam seems to have bounced back with a new lease on life. I enjoyed Sam's contributions even though he was acting in the role of a support character. He was really helping the others keep their wits about them. When he saw how anxious Daniel was after he and the others discovered the corpses, he offered to help him track down the breaker and even went so far as to fix the generator and get the power back on.
Ready to go fishing? Okay, let's go.
The one thing I've noticed about this research institute is how it really allowed Sam and Daniel to shine by directly appealing to their skill sets. Daniel with the computer he fixed, and Sam with the generator and the front-loader engine. Probably the best thing to come to Sam's storyline was the quick moment when he and Johnny thanked each other for keeping them alive. It wasn't overdone or super emotional, it was said, it was acknowledged, and then they got back to work. As a man, I approve this drama. As I mentioned before, Daniel was really anxious this week and couldn't seem to slow down and rest. So of course, when given the opportunity to go into the creepy Russian science lab, he jumped at the chance. Let's talk about this lab for a moment. There were several shots of what was inside, and let's take it slow. There were core samples from the ground, weird stuff in jars, pictures of embryos, surgical equipment, a box of sodium iodide, cages with bloody remains inside, and I'm pretty sure I also saw tentacles somewhere. From everything that's in there, I think it's pretty safe to assume that this place is a genetics lab dealing with radioactivity and breeding. The only thing that seemed out of place was the falcon in a cage. Whatever was making noise in that room sounded a lot bigger than a falcon and certainly wasn't in a cage. At this point, we're in the same boat that we were in last week, where something interesting happened and wasn't really expounded upon. I know the other characters didn't seem to care much, but I think the atomic clocks that Daniel found are especially significant considering the time fluctuation theory. According to HowStuffWorks.com, atomic clocks work by using the resonance of atoms the same way that a grandfather clock uses the swinging of its pendulum. Because atomic resonance is so constant compared to pendulums and quartz crystals, atomic clocks are the most accurate that man has ever made. In light of this, the fact that the Research Institute has 2 atomic clocks that are 4 minutes off from one another could suggest that there are time fluctuations happening in the valley. After their foray into the lab, Sam and Daniel got the power running again, and we discovered what happened to the beacon. It seemed to me that the destruction of the beacon and the murder of the researchers are not mutually exclusive occurrences. Later on, Daniel successfully puts one of the computers back together and uncovers footage from Kulik's 1927 expedition. It's clear at that point that the researchers here were trying to figure out what happened in Tunguska before they were all shot. While Daniel was busy working on getting the computer back together, Johnny noticed a map on the wall that marked the Research Institute and the crater that the Fellowship saw, as well as a town to the southwest. This got Johnny thinking that they could take the front loader and drive it back to civilization. The settlement that Johnny saw on the map was only about 125 miles away, and even if you can't get above 15 miles per hour, you'd get where you're going in under a day. The trick, of course, is getting the front loader to start, and then getting it back to the settlement, and then on to civilization. It's a risky move, but with Sam's familiarity with engines and Johnny's adventurous spirit, I think we'll be seeing that front loader in action next week, unless something sabotages it, of course. Back at camp, things came to a head when Sabina and Nico stepped out of the cabin to come face to face with several armed men with some really weird-looking shoes. It's obvious to me that these are Evenki tribesmen, and that they are not too happy about these strangers that have been traipsing around their land causing a general ruckus. Now, what's not so clear to me is why they're wearing monster feet. In the preview for next week's episode, we see that it's a special kind of shoe they're wearing and not some mutation. So, what are they trying to scare away? Other people? Some creature perhaps? I'm not sure. With the way the show's been going lately, I'm not feeling very keen on making any grand claims anymore. I'm just looking forward to finding out whether these new characters are friend or foe. And now it's time for the Tweet of the Week. This week's tweet comes from @JoyceGiraud. It says, @_Animator, @WactorTractor, we had to combine 2 episodes because of the Royal Baby special, frowny face, but I promise you will like it, happy face. Hopefully, in case you're removed from the context, @_Animator asked Joyce why there are only going to be 2 more episodes to the season instead of the 3 that were originally planned. Anyway, as if there were no more reasons to be ticked off by the Royal Baby special. Now we're getting cheated out of a complete season of television? Of course, now that I think of it, maybe it was all a conspiracy cooked up by Infinity Films and the royal family. Step 1, create a television show. Step 2, birth an heir to the throne in the middle of that show's season. Step 3, you know. Step 4, profit. It's so crazy it's got to be true. Episode 9 seemed eerily like Episode 8. Lots of wandering around, looking at set pieces without taking the time to really contextualize them to the narrative. The way I see it, if the producers needed to edit together 2 episodes, they should have edited together Episode 8 and 9 and cut out some of the unimportant parts, like the long spans of time where people were stumbling around in the dark or staring out windows. I'm not going to stand here and say that Siberia jumped the shark midway through the season, but when you go so big so fast, you need to keep that momentum through to the end. We've got 2 more episodes before the season ends, and I'm hoping that they're more like the first half of the season than the second. Since things are starting to wrap up, I'm interested in hearing what you'd like me to cover after Siberia ends. I've been kicking around the idea of doing character profiles covering their individual arcs over the course of the season, but I could also cover another show. If you have any ideas, just send them my way. As always, please comment below to keep the conversation going, subscribe to my channel for more of these weekly reviews of Siberia, and follow me on Twitter to see what I have to say during each episode.
Так что до следующей недели. Я не буду Рик 500, и спасибо за просмотр.